Okay, one of my commenters asked me to review this video. This is Orion, and he is, you probably know his face. He's everywhere, but I will just be so upfront with you. I dislike this man. I dislike his belief systems and his thoughts. I've never enjoyed his content. And the only reason I'm talking about it today is because it was a request to view this video, this specific video, through the lens of progressive deconstructed queer. And it's about sexless marriage, a breach of contract. Through a patriarchal lens, there is a way of viewing marriage as you ought and are obligated to have sex with your partner. In a progressive deconstructed relationship, it's not that you ought to have sex with your partner, it's that you ought to value each other as people and value consent and let it be what it's going to be. So in typical patriarchal bubbles, it's like the thought is, if you don't have sex with your partner, it's abuse. Because usually, and I'll go through his comment section with you so you understand, they're thinking about people, generally, if I'm being good faith, who tend to weaponize sex in a relationship. Now, I know you're thinking and I'm thinking we would never do this to our partners, but they're used to dealing with couples who are not high compatible. They do not like each other. They literally don't even like each other. Okay. And so they're thinking about couples where the women lie to their partners about wanting to have sex with them. The men are cheating behind their back. There's, like sex as a weapon used. The same people who everyone is terrified about divorce court over, even though millions of people get divorced all the time and have great co-parenting relationships and are fine after divorce, they probably work with the couples who weaponize like children against the parents, right? Because there are those people. Now, again, we want to aim for healthy. We want to aim for deconstructed. So let's watch this video through that lens and I'll pick at it with you, okay?
Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks Better. I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is sexless marriage. So this is, unfortunately, a problem that many with whom I consult bring to me. It's been 5 years, 10 years since the man has had sex with his own wife. I understand that it can go the other way, but in the vast majority of cases, it's the wife, not the husband, who, for whatever reason, has decided to unilaterally terminate the sexual dimension of the relationship. Now, being sexually rejected is a difficult experience for a lot of men. I've made episodes on this topic in the past. However, it's another thing altogether when a man is sexually rejected not by a girl at a bar or on a dating app, but in his own marriage. The one and only morally and legally sanctioned place for him to have sex in the entire universe. This can
Pourquoi? Let's hear that again.
By a girl at a bar or on a dating app, but in his own marriage. The one and only morally and legally sanctioned place for him to have sex in the entire universe.
I've never heard someone say it like that. What? Why would you say it like that?
This can be extremely hurtful and infuriating and demoralizing and hopeless for the man in question.
Oh.
Any way you cut it, it's quite a slap in the face.
Oh!
Of course, many of these guys are at least somewhat complicit in their predicament. Like they could often stand to be more attractive or seductive or emotionally provocative.
Oh, this is going to be a hard one to get through, girls. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is going to be a tough one to get through. Okay, let's just pause right there. Dehumanizing language, objectifying language, ruthless language, right? It's infuriating to not have sex in your marriage. Infuriating? Like the language is so violent, the reaction is violent. It's so negative. It's ugh.
Fortunately, it's possible to bring sex back into a dead bedroom. I've made an episode on that subject as well. It just takes some time and effort to do so. Unfortunately, there's also no guarantee that anything will work in this regard, as two people can't really have sex if one person doesn't want to. In any case...
Okay, thanks. Okay, so just we're going to focus on that consent part of it. Let's just, for the reminder out there, okay, you're not entitled to sex in your marriage because consent is number one. But here's the thing. He would say in his bubble, he'd probably say men are entitled to sex in marriage. And I would say nobody's entitled to sex, but it's pretty weird that you don't have sex with your husband. My husband is not entitled to sex, but it'd be pretty weird if I didn't want to have sex with him. You know what I mean? But he's not entitled to it. The question is, why don't we want to have sex? I think the bigger problem here is that we're not we don't want to have sex, not that we aren't having it. So again, there's a difference between not wanting to have sex with your husband and not having sex. There's nothing wrong with not having sex. There might be something wrong if you do not want to have sex with your partner, regardless of gender, right?
It's important that I at least mention some of this overarching context before I go any further, as I have kind of an unconventional take on the subject. And here it is. My take is that categorically refusing to have sex in an exclusive monogamous relationship by unilateral decision is a form of cheating.
Interesting that he went with cheating and not abuse, because I could have agreed if he said abuse, but cheating? Wait, I don't get it. Cheating? Wouldn't it be withholding like abuse? Wouldn't it be more abuse if you're like strategically withholding sex? Hold on, let's listen to that again.
My take is that categorically refusing to have sex in an exclusive monogamous relationship by unilateral decision is a form of cheating.
Wait, what does he mean unilateral decision? One-sided, unilateral, meaning, okay, so hold on, let's go through that again.
My take is that categorically refusing to have sex in an exclusive monogamous relationship by unilateral decision is a form of cheating.
So withholding sex or not choosing to have sex with your partner because you don't want to do it is cheating. Isn't he just talking about consent? So Chet said one party made it. Yeah, but isn't that just what consent is? Consent only requires one party to say no. Huh? Okay, let's keep watching.
A partner who, for whatever reason, decides for both parties that sex isn't going to happen anymore has stepped out of a monogamous relationship.
Oh, pause. He says anymore. Ooh, has stepped out of the relationship. I would not say cheating. I would say abusive. If without a discussion and without counseling or without the why, if my partner came to me tomorrow and said, we're not having sex anymore. And I'm like, oh, why? And they're like, we're just not having it. I've decided. I'd be like, oh, yeah, that would maybe warrant a divorce or counseling because it would be weird and out of character. And also it would be strange and it wouldn't make sense. But if my partner came to me and said, I really love you. I love being married to you. I want to be married to you forever. I am going through something. And for me and in the foreseeable future and for the foreseeable future, I can't imagine prioritizing sex in this relationship, nor do I want to. Is that okay? And I would say, wow, that is a lot for me. Let's talk about it because, I'm not, okay, like I could see that being a reality. Like sex isn't necessary to our marriage. We've talked about this. Okay. Why do you think that's happening? Do you want to look into it further? Do you want to deconstruct it? And if my partner was like, no, I don't want to know why I'm doing it. I just want to do it. I'd be like, well, that's not allowed. Because in my marriage, we have to deconstruct it. We actually can't do anything without knowing why, really. I mean, we could do some things, but you can't make a huge change in this relationship without knowing why. So first I'd be like, let's figure it out. Why is this huge change happening? Right? And, maybe my partner is asexual. Exactly, chat. Maybe my partner's, realizing something about their own body, or maybe something changed, or let's talk about it. Because sex isn't a requirement of my marriage, it's just a perk. I'm already open to that idea because I'm not leaving my partner if we don't have sex anymore. But if my partner came to me and decided we're not having sex, that's different than our relationship respecting the other person's journey and naturally not having sex. Again, a sexless marriage to me is different than couples who don't have sex. I'm not interested in a sexless marriage, but I'm okay with a marriage in which we don't have sex. These are two different things for me. Sexless marriage feels like an abandonment. It feels like abuse. It feels like neglect or something bad is happening. It feels like you've checked out of the relationship, kind of like he said. But this is why I wouldn't be with this person. And I think most people are with these people because we're settling in relationships. We're not dating for values or ethics. We are in gendered relationships. We're in dynamics where the patriarchy is infiltrating, where all of these bad things are involved in our marriage, right? Like, So I think like his bubble and the way he's talking about it isn't deconstructed enough for me to know that it's safe. But I could say from a progressive, deconstructed queer lens, there's nothing wrong with your marriage if you're not having sex. But there might be something wrong with your marriage if your partner doesn't know or you don't know why you're not having sex. You always want to have clear communication, right? Okay.
Let's consider this further. What is cheating? In the context of any game, cheating occurs when a player intentionally violates one of the rules of play. And this, of course,
Who's my brother talking to? Who's my bro talking to, bro? Is this like a game of COD right now?
Of course, is why extra partner affairs are a form of cheating in a monogamous relationship. They violate one of the rules of play, namely the rule of exclusivity or monogamy. Mono means one. So having two partners would be a violation of monogamy. However, it's wrong to think that cheating only occurs in monogamous relationships when a partner has more than one lover. If you sign up for monogamy, then cheating happens whenever someone in the relationship intentionally decides to have not one partner, not just more than one partner. 0 is as much not one as 2 is. When you take more than...
Can you say mommy? Say mommy. 1, 2. Who is he talking to? Is he talking to Miss Rachel's audience? Damn, who is his viewership? 12-year-olds? Oh my God, bro. Come on now. Don't talk to me like I'm like a 10-year-old, bro. Chad says, you two feel safe to communicate and work through. In the scenario he's creating, sounds like trauma or fear of communication. Yeah, it sounds like he's doing this thing where and to be fair, I do think he's probably dealing with like what I think most people are in, which is shitty relationships. I think most people are in shitty relationships. I think I was in shitty relationships all my life until I found this marriage. I think I was in shitty relationships until I had a good one with myself. I think most people are settling. I think most of you are, not you, my audience, of course, because you guys are all perfect. But I think everyone in the world, there's like a 70% of people are in shitty relationships, at least. Okay. And when I look at the world and I think about the way people talk about their partners, I just think like, you don't even like him. You don't even like her. You guys don't even like your partners. So yeah, like I think if you really value someone as a person, you have hard conversations with them, including your friends, including your family. You are wise in how you have those conversations. You are considerate and compassionate, but you're going to have uncomfortable conversations with the people you love the most, because if not you, who? If not you, who? Who was supposed to have these very difficult conversations with your loved ones, if not you? Do you not love them? I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's weird. But like, aren't you supposed to be the person who loves them more than anybody in the world? So how not you? You know? So it's just kind of weird, right? Chatting says, I thought cheating is when you disrupt the trust between you and your partner based on the agreed upon boundaries. I think that is what cheating is. I think cheating is ultimately doing something against the relationships construct, but typically in monogamous relationships, some people consider watching porn cheating, looking at girls on Instagram cheating. Some people consider talking to opposite sex people is cheating. It's all dependent. It just depends on what bubble he's coming from to think about what cheating is, right? Some people, don't even consider cheating, like emotional cheating. I do, but some people don't think it is.
And you agreed to, you're stealing. However, when you receive...
Let's rewind that a little.
Just more than one partner. 0 is as much not one as 2 is. When you take more than you agreed to, you're stealing. However, when you receive less than you agreed to, you're being stolen from. And just like stealing can work both ways, you can take more or receive less. Cheating can work both ways too.
I do think there's an unfairness to it. I wouldn't call it cheating. I would say, like, do you think this is fair, compassionate, and loving to the dignity of the relationship that we've created? And is this how you want to be? You know that woman I showed you on stream yesterday whose husband dropped the coffee grounds and then he went the whole day and night and next morning not picking it up or, quote, seeing it. And then she recorded him and for some reason shared it with us on the internet. I don't know why you would do that to your partner. But he kind of like, when you got it, like, and he was kind of defensive, I think, and probably embarrassed. But like, she didn't just go to him and say, hey, I love you. You coffee grounds are on the floor. Can you clean it up, please? Instead, she filmed him and tested him and then shared it with strangers on the internet, right? There's no love and dignity in the relationship. Now, maybe he did it on purpose and realized he did it and left it for her, but then he doesn't, value her. Then he doesn't show dignity to the relationship. How are you, going to say you dignify and you love your relationship, but then you're not going to, have those conversations. And again, you're going to have those conversations through marriage. The other day I was just telling my partner, I was like, sometimes I realized I spilled coffee and I won't even realize till hours later. And he's like, oh, I know. Sometimes I wipe it up. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, sometimes like I noticed that you dropped coffee or like you spilled and you didn't even realize it. And I was like, bro, sometimes I see coffee like in my office and I'm like, how did that get there? And a part of it is the neurodivergency. A part of it is I don't always see when I spill things. And so I don't always see the things on the floor. Like I cannot always see dirt, which is why like when we go through to clean, we go through really diligently because like, if you're neurodivergent, sometimes your brain just like, and you don't see mess. Like you don't see things. And so I have a lot of compassion when I see people in situations like this, where I'm like, did you tell your partner like, hey, do you know you dropped that? And then your partner's like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. Let me get that. Or where they're like, yeah, I knew I dropped that. I just didn't pick it up. Then I'm like, what? Do you know what I'm saying? Like I can be very compassionate to the nuances of how our brains process information. But it's when you feel like your partner is doing it on purpose or neglecting or thinking, well, you've got it right. Then it feels like, hey, you're taking advantage of me. I love you. Please don't take advantage of me. We love our partners. We cannot be taking advantage of them. So, if I was sitting here and spilling coffee, then being like, ha, 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 my partner can clean it. I'm the one who makes all the money. She'll clean it up. Ha, ha, ha. Like that would be so rude. That would be so ugly, right? And sometimes I do feel like a lot of these people are in those relationships where it's like, I went to work and I worked 60 hours this week. I get pussy now. Bend over, bitch. You know what I mean? I really feel like that is some of these relationships. But then I also think a lot of these women marry men they don't even like, and then they don't want to have sex with them. And though that is their right to not consent to that sex, those men are also allowed to divorce them, right? That's also allowed. Like, that's the thing. Girl, boy, they, them. If you are unhappy in your marriage and you really feel like you've done your best and you've talked and you've dignified this relationship and you just know it's not getting better, you're allowed to get divorced, guys. File the paperwork, okay? And honestly, even if you have kids, sometimes divorce is literally better off for the kids. Healthy co-parents can be better than miserable parents who stay together. So again, I feel like we have to do preventative care and raise our kids with this idea that like, do not settle. Be with somebody who shares your worldview. Be with somebody that when life gets hard, you guys are going to team up and be on the same page. Okay, back to this man.
You can take more or receive less. In monogamous relationships, having sex with 2 people is just as much cheating as is having sex with 0 people, because in both cases, you're not having sex with 1 person. Both are a breach of the agreement. So what I tell these guys who have been in sexless marriages for years is that irrespective of their feelings on the subject, they are no longer in a monogamous relationship. Like if a man's wife were sleeping with the pool boy, we would all agree that that man, whether he liked it or not, was no longer in a monogamous relationship. By the same token, if a man's wife no longer sleeps with her husband, I would like us to consider that that man, whether he likes it or not, is no longer in a monogamous relationship.
Hi, hello? No, you're wrong. You can say, and I would agree with you, that that man might be in an abusive or toxic relationship, because I think weaponizing or withholding sex is abuse. But I also would question, why are you in a relationship you are so unfulfilled by? And why didn't you get divorced 10 years ago? But also, like, I don't know why monogamy needs to be changed to, like, have this conversation. It just doesn't even make sense. Like, what does monogamy have to do with anything? Because now, here's what I think he's building us up towards. Are you ready? He is building us up towards, I think, I could be wrong, this man now being able to go get it from somebody else. That's what I'm thinking he's trying to do. He's trying to say, well, if they're no longer monogamous, he can have sex with other people. That's what I think he's trying to say. Now, hear me out. He could have also gone to his wife and said, hey, I love you. Can I have sex with other people since we're not having sex? And if she was like, no. He's like, okay, do you want to have sex with me? No. Okay, hear me out. Divorce. I had a man tell me once, okay, a man who I was very empathetic to when he first told me this story, that he was like in an abusive marriage and that it was so bad and that he eventually had to cheat. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? And as he's telling me this story, I was like, why didn't you just divorce her? He's like, what do you mean? She was like withholding sex. She wasn't engaging in life. We weren't doing life together. And I was like, yeah, why didn't you just divorce her? He's like, well, I mean, I did. I was like, but after you cheated. He's like, but I told her I would cheat if she didn't divorce me. She didn't want to divorce me. I was like, she doesn't have a choice. Divorce her. Like you're not you know what I'm saying? Like you can't be put in a position where you feel like, oh, this person has so much control over me and I can't just get a divorce, so I have to go cheat. But also I only cheated because she wouldn't divorce me. But also like file the goddamn paperwork. File the goddamn paperwork. You guys act like filing paperwork is somehow like file the goddamn paperwork. You know what I mean? Come on, stop making excuses. Stop going on stories. Stop making fucking stories up in your head, bro. File the paperwork. I know it's hard, but you know what's harder? Staying in a loveless marriage. If you're, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know what's funny is like I don't even know if there was abuse or not, but I will say this. When I learned more about that story, I felt like it almost like he said it to get out of the relationship. Versus like, I don't know if it was really happening, but I will say this. I do think withholding sex can be a form of abuse, 100%. I think not living a life with your partner that you wanted to live can be abuse, 100%. But it doesn't justify your cheating. You cannot cheat on somebody and be like, but I was being abused. I don't think that works. Because that's every excuse every cheater uses ever. Okay, all these pathetic women sleeping with married men because the man is in a bad relationship and she's like so much better and he just needs to leave his wife. And when he leaves his wife, he'll pick me. And then he won't do that to me because I won't put him in that situation. And he'll never cheat on me because I won't abuse him. But she was neglecting the relationship. They weren't happy together. You know, it's like, God, please, you guys are so messy. Go to therapy, like, and do philosophical work. No cheating, any reason, period, the end. And don't come up with crazy hypotheticals about why you have to cheat. Cheating, never. Withholding sex, honestly, this is why I'm so surprised he decided to go the monogamous route and not the abuse route, right? Chet said, can you explain how withholding sex can be abusive? Withholding sex is not the same thing as revoking consent. Withholding sex in my bubble is a tactic of manipulation. It's a power move you use over your partner to say like, no, you can't have it. It's like withholding affection. You can't withhold affection. It's a weaponized, withholding is a weaponized term in my bubble versus revoking consent or saying I'm not in the mood tonight is different. But if you withhold affection from your partner, it's like, yo, if your parents withheld affection from you, that's abuse, right? Like you don't want to have a childhood where your parents withheld affection. That's bad, right? Like withholding is not a good word in my bubble. I've never heard it being used properly, right? So that's why withholding sex is not good. But, you know, I guess everyone might use that word differently in different bubbles, but I've never heard it not used in like a manipulation kind of way. So that's the way that I'm using it. But like, you know, I've revoked consent in my own marriage for sex. Like, we'll be trying to, you know, maybe be a little intimate. And then I'm like, baby, I'm so sorry. Like, I just don't think my fibro's in it today. I think my leg's too cramped. I think it's too difficult. And my partner goes, that's okay. And then we, you know, go on and watch anime or do our life. Like, that's not me withholding sex. That's me revoking consent, which my partner then respects. And then we go on with our day because we're both considerate and compassionate and loving people who take into consideration our bodies and our minds and where we're at and what we're doing. And my partner doesn't hold it against me. We don't keep track of all the times one of us revoked consent or one of us didn't want to have sex, or there's no calendar of us keeping track of all the times we didn't want to do something. You know what I mean? There's only us being honest and communicative and loving and compassionate and all those other beautiful things, right? So when he says she's withholding sex and it's been years, it's been a decade, it's been 20 years of no sex, to me, that is like day one should have been a red flag that something is going on. Like I said, if I came to my partner and I said, do you want to have sex? And they said no, I wouldn't think anything of it. If they said no every time for the next 5 times, I'd be like, hey, baby, what's up? What's going on? Are you okay? And if they were like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, no, we kind of have to talk about this now. Yellow, serious relationship conversation because you're the love of my life and we're doing this forever. Why aren't we having sex? It's been 5 times in a row I've asked. And then we'd have a conversation. If my partner was like, we're not having this conversation, I'd be like, well, okay, one thing you are kind of entitled to is like clear communication in a partnership. I actually think like part of the requirement of my marriage, which we talked about before getting married, is like we're both entitled to transparency and communication, because it's the only way we're going to make it for 40, 50 years. We're never going to make it. We're both going to get divorced because I will divorce you. Don't make me divorce you. Okay. So I'm not afraid of getting divorced. But the only way we will avoid divorce is if we stay open and communicative and transparent. Okay? So again, I think there's like this whole thing, this whole thing that plays into these relationships where people are not talking, they're not communicating, they do not feel comfortable having these conversations with their partners, and they're probably getting married for the wrong reason, right? Okay, back to this guy.
He's in a celibate relationship, which we can assume is not what he signed up for. And this would constitute a breach of the monogamous relationship agreement. If you appreciate the insights on this channel, I would highly encourage you to get your hands on a copy of my book, The Value of Others. Over the course of 432 pages, I delve deep into my economic model of relationships and explain the behavior of both.
Is this an autistic king? Is that why he's so weird? I'm autistic too. Don't worry, girly. Is he autistic? You know what I'm saying? He's just a little neurodivergent.
Men and women in the game of mating and dating. I also provide a lot of actionable advice on how to get and keep more of what you want in the sexual marketplace. Once you
the sexual marketplace of ideas.
Read The Value of Others, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. Now available in ebook, audiobook, and
religious? You said I think he's just religious. Is he religious?
Paperback formats. The links are in the description.
Wow.
Now, when a term is breached, that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole agreement automatically gets thrown out. Like, people get this wrong all the time. For better or worse, our culture generally believes that cheating
Chet said, I think he's just a capitalist. Sexual marketplace was, you know what I'm saying?
Sense of having more than one partner is
okay, what?
Culture automatically gets thrown out. Like, people get this wrong all the time. For better or worse, our culture generally believes that cheating, in the sense of having more than one partner, is grounds for the complete and immediate and permanent dissolution of a relationship. Like, a good father and faithful provider can have an indiscretion on a business trip once, and our culture would see nothing wrong with his wife ending a 20-year marriage, filing for divorce, and breaking up their family, which is just wild.
Look, okay. In my marriage, cheating is abuse. Period. I don't care why you did it or how you did it, you're abusive. Do not marry me if you plan to cheat. And if you cheat at any point, you basically, okay, it's abuse, period, the end. So, you know what I'm saying? You are now responsible for breaking up this marriage and divorcing me, which I will handle appropriately. You know what I mean? I would rather you divorce me than cheat on me. At least then my child's father doesn't have to be a fucking cheater too. Because at the end of the day, I'm not mad you want to divorce me. If you really think it's better for you, if you really think you'll be happier, I want to see the love of my life be happy. But I also want my child's father to be somebody that they don't have to think of as somebody who cheated on my mom. Okay? So like, yeah, hello? Like, I would rather you just divorce me. Now, here's the thing. And here's the thing that makes, to be fair, a big part of why relationships and divorce are hard is that people don't know why they're getting divorced and they don't know why they're dating. Like, they don't actually know, in a lot of ways, why any of these things happen the way that they happen. They don't know why they're together. So again, I can have black and white ideas about cheating because I understand why I have that belief. I agree with that belief and my partner agrees with it too. So just like hitting your partner, it's not up for discussion. Hitting your partner is not up for discussion. Okay? For some people, they think it is. For me, it's not in my marriage. It is not up for discussion in my marriage. Cheating is not up for discussion in my marriage. You cheated, we're getting divorced. Okay? Period. And I think that's the thing. If in your relationship, cheating is not the end of the marriage, that's okay. That's your prerogative. Fine. For me, it is. Okay? If you want to stay with the man who hit you or the woman who hit you, like, you can talk to your therapist about that. But, people do it. People do it, right? So, but not in my marriage, girl. Not my marriage.
Like, considering how hard it is for many men to be monogamous, expecting indefinite.
Boo! Boo! saying it's hard for men to be monogamous. Boo. Why do men in one side of their mouth want to be seen as these amazing leaders, and the one side of their mouth, they're like, I can't keep myself from fucking? It's like, bro, are you disciplined or not? How hard is it to deconstruct, bro? Deconstruct, it is hard, actually, it's very hard. Deconstruct the patriarchy, deconstruct this objectification, deconstruct the rumor men have been fed and brainwashed with that it is hard for you to be monogamous. Deconstruct this idea that men are sex fiends and always thinking about sex. That is literally, you have been brainwashed. Like, you've literally been trained this way. So much so that men and boys have had to lie about their body count just to impress their friends. Okay? That men, when they say they're virgins, you guys make fun of them. When they're like, yeah, dude, I just like haven't found anyone I liked. I don't really want to have sex with people. When men come out as asexual, you make fun of them because you're like, you're not a real man. It is a rumor. It is not true. It is brainwashing that you think men struggle to be monogamous or that they are automatically sex fiends. Okay? Some men, sure. Not men as a group. You are not a monolithic experience.
Lifelong perfection in this regard, and severely punishing the smallest deviation from that perfection is absolutely incredible. Like, it's incredible that this is normalized, and even more incredible that men continue to sign up for it, given their track record.
I mean, I do think it's interesting how men sign up for things they know they're going to fail at, especially a marriage and kids, you know? Could you maybe not? But people are evolved animals on a planet. We are like little monkeys fucking. And so we're making babies. I think 40% of babies aren't even planned, if I remember last time I checked. So like, you know what I mean? There's all this conversation to be had. Again, we are introspective and extrospective, not to surpass our biological experience, but to have a deeper relationship with our biological experience. It's funny how men can meditate during No Nut November, but you can't figure out ways to make this a reality and deconstruct your relationship to like gooning and any other capacity. Hello?
In any case, just like I don't think that having sex with more than one person is necessarily grounds for the complete and immediate and permanent dissolution of a relationship, I don't think that having sex with 0 people is necessarily grounds for the same either. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Like, just because one term in a contract is violated, the whole contract isn't automatically thrown out.
Now look, if you watch my favorite therapist on YouTube, Dr. Kirkonda, he would say the same thing, that he helps a lot of couples move through infidelity and that it's not always a deal breaker. But he's coming from a progressive lens. He's coming from a progressive situation in which couples might have been raised in households in which they didn't have good communication skills. They weren't raised as good communicators, and they engaged in this behavior and feel so deeply ashamed and deeply hurt by it, and they want to make it right. And so they show up to therapy trying to make it right. And that's maybe a different feeling than a guy who's like, I'm a man, so I have to be horny, so I can't be monogamous. Like, that's a different narrative. One narrative says, I was a victim of the system that raised me poorly. I want to do better. And one says, I'm just a man. I'm just a big baby. I'm just a man. I got to do it. You know, stupid. Stupid. See how this man gets to be a doctor, but I'm smarter than him? Is he a real doctor? Hold on, I'm gonna look this up. Psychologist, psych presented, let me see. Clinical psychologist in a private practice. Man, these pictures are so autistic. And I mean that like, you know, just one to another. He's seductive. He's not frothing like many red pillars. And many times, he's not even necessarily wrong in the technical sense. He's seductive. Oh my God, Reddit. He's seductive. Yeah, see, it just proves just because you're a doctor doesn't mean, you know what I mean? A licensed psychologist and founder of Stellar Gear University, doctor of psychology, master's degree, doctorate clinical psychology, California School of Psychology, professor, San Francisco. I guess, is there another way for me to check his credentials? I don't even know. This is funny. This is like Red Pill Guru or introducing value, blah, 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 blah. He's a licensed clinical psychologist who only talks about people's sexual marketplace value. He says that women are peak value at 18 and gradually declines throughout her life with her best years between 18 and 25. Gross. He did a soft white underbelly interview. Don't like that channel. Let me see. People have called him the Andrew Tate that went to college. Oh, great. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. He's like, that's the problem with like these degrees. You know what I mean? Or like, you know, it's not that I'm arguing that whether or not he went to school or finished his degree or did anything. It's just like, you know, I'm not even sure that it matters really. But the point is that he obviously is fitting into some specific bubble. And degrees can't give you values. That's what it is. It's like he might have the degree, but his values suck. You know? I think that's what it is. It's like, yeah, I'm glad you like are a doctor and all that, but your view of gender and relationships is just very reductive. It's very caveman reductive, which look, I think is some people's experience, right? Like, I believe that. I believe we are biological creatures, and I think most people are having a very minimal and casual relationship with their biological experience, and I think that's most people. And that's why it is so hard to be disciplined. It is so hard to deconstruct. It is so hard to live in a world where, like, a person being naked in front of you doesn't inherently mean something sexual. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm at the point where you could be having sex in front of me and like nothing about it is sexual. You could be masturbating in front of me and I'm like, okay. In the same way, I know for a fact, you know exactly what that is like when a homeless man has turned around and started like masturbating in front of you. You know what it's like. It's not feeling very sexual right now, girl. I hope you get housing with peace and love. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. And that's the thing is like, when it's like, you know, when you're a caretaker and you have to take care of people and bathe them and stuff, the fact that there are people who can't do that without seeing it as sexual, like, you are the problem. You are not deconstructing. You are not seeing human beings for what they are. And that's why, you know, people are so unhealthy. And that's the problem. It's not the porn. It's not the drugs. It's your relationship to these things.
Marriage isn't just about exclusive sexuality. It's also about children and resources and service and lifestyle and history and emotions, among many other things. Relationships are not one-dimensional. For better or worse, there are many, many components to most long-term relationships. To my mind, this means that if your partner is no longer sleeping with you, you're no longer in a monogamous relationship. But that, in and of itself, doesn't mean that the other dimensions of the relationship must be invalidated.
Do you think if your partner is abusing you, you're in the relationship still? Like, if your partner cheats on you, are you still in a relationship? If a partner hits you, are you still in a relationship? If a partner manipulates you, are you still in a relationship? What I think he's trying to say, and let me help him, because obviously he's ridiculous, is that if a man is being abused in a relationship, he is no longer obligated to respect the construct of the relationship enough to show it the dignity it would have deserved had this abuse not occurred. And therefore, he gets to act on his own accord. Okay? And I'm saying, though that might be true in spirit, and I do agree with the premise that once you are abused, you are no longer obligated to maintain the status and dignity of the relationship you signed up for. You are still obligated to live by your own values. And so if I was in an abusive relationship in which I was engaged with somebody, my first thought is not to go fuck somebody. My first thought is, how do I improve my situation and get out of this moment into a better moment? This is Ross and Rachel all over again. Ross and Rachel have a fight, and the first thing Ross thinks to do, because he thinks they're on a break, is to go have sex the same night they have a fight. And Rachel slept on it like a mature adult. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I understand that you feel like in your marriage, now that abuse has occurred, you're no longer obligated to maintain that relationship. I can agree with that premise. But now the goal shouldn't be to sleep with other people. The goal should be to end the relationship and file for divorce. But if you are in a relationship in which you again, create a scenario in which you're in a relationship and you've decided all of a sudden, even though you've been happy or in this relationship, apparently happy, apparently it's been fine, and all of a sudden decide, I'm over it now. And without a proper stepping stone of discourse, just decided, well, you're not sleeping with me. I decide that's abuse. I'm moving out of the relationship. I'm going to go sleep with somebody else. Like, obviously there are steps here, right, that I feel like aren't being talked about. Like, we can give certain scenarios, but if I'm in a marriage where we haven't had sex for 20 years, guys, there is so much more to be talked about, right? Like, there's so much more that should have been talked about before this even happened. Like, what responsibility is the man putting on himself to have asked, how did we get here? Like, how did you even get to 20 years of marriage with no sex when you wanted sex the whole time? How did you even get there? Like, that's such a big question. Without blaming yourself, how did you get there? How did you get there? And how would you tell your kids not to repeat this behavior? You wouldn't tell them, go find a girl who's always wet and ready. You would say, well, to be honest, I never really talked to your mom. To be honest, I never really sat down with your mom and had real conversations with her. To be honest, we never really talked about it before we got married. You know, we just never really talked about sex. We just assumed we would have it. Or I just assumed we would have it. You know, it's like, hello, you know? Yeah, Chesed, your partner doing something wrong isn't grounds for you to do something wrong. Exactly. And yet I understand that should you be in a separation or you've left a relationship, you are now allowed to engage with other people for sure. Like, that's not my business. But as long as you are fighting for a marriage, in a marriage, engaging in the marriage, it would be kind of strange for you to be thinking about sleeping with people. He's making it sound like sex is this end all be all, like it's the most important thing ever. But why aren't you having sex? And you can't just say, oh, she's withholding sex. There's a why to that. And I'm not saying she's right or he's wrong. I'm saying why. I don't even know how we got here.
If you've ever read your contract with your employer or your landlord, you'll likely find somewhere near the bottom a clause called severability. This basically stipulates that in the event a party violates a part of the agreement, the rest of the agreement still stands. The clause in question is severable or separable from the rest of the contract. This is kind of why if you're a day late with your rent, your landlord can't just barge into your space, or if you don't have hot water, you can start to just remodel the apartment without permission. The violation is a violation, and it affects the relevant clause, but the rest of the contract remains in force. And that's kind of how I think about sexless marriages. The monogamy clause has been violated. A sexless spouse is no longer in a monogamous relationship, and so shouldn't be held accountable for acting non-monogamously, given that the other—
Didn't I tell you that's where he was going? Didn't I tell you that's where he was going? I told you that's where he was going because that's all they're ever thinking about. They're only thinking about punani. You're not even thinking about your partner. You're not even thinking about yourself. You think the solution to this 20-year dry spell is to go fuck instead of counseling, divorce, introspection, meditation, anything fucking else? This is what I'm saying. This whole video was just a, hey boy, I got you. This is how you sleep with other girls. Like, bro, you didn't give them any actual advice. Can you imagine you go to a fucking therapist and the best advice he can give you is go fuck somebody? Jesus fucking Christ.
other partner has already unilaterally decided this for the other party, but all the other clauses of the relationship remain in force. Now, I don't think this should be done hastily. In long-term relationships, interest in sex can ebb and flow. So if this is your primary relationship, it's a good idea to have some grace and patience with your partner. But there are limits to this as well. And infinite patience and an absence of accountability may not be great for sexual relationships. If you've waited and you've talked about it and you've explored different arrangements and you've tried this, that, and the other, and your monogamous partner still isn't interested in sex, then I hate to tell you this, that is no longer your monogamous partner. And the monogamy clause has been severed from the rest of the relationship agreement.
A woman is married to a man who's a provider and is a good father. Him having an affair or sleeping with somebody once is not grounds for divorce, yeah? On a business trip, okay, right? But if he's married to a woman who's been a great mother, dinner's always on the table, the house is always clean, everything is always taken care of, it is grounds for cheating or sleeping with other people because he's not getting sex. Why don't they just get divorced? If this person wants to cheat, you might as well just get divorced or whatever, or ask your partner if you can sleep around with other people and see if they're into it, okay? Or he can say, hey, like, I really need this in a relationship. I feel really left out. I feel like I'm not connected to you. I think we should separate. Instead, it's like, oh, this part of the relationship is severed, but everything else is intact. Why would this part of the relationship be severed? Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, what is the point of that? Like, what is the logic there?
Appreciate this is an unconventional take, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Treating sexlessness as a form of cheating might also help to reduce its prevalence by providing a kind of natural consequence to that condition, which doesn't really exist in the popular imagination at present. In any case, I think it's something to consider. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And please send this episode to someone who you think might benefit from its message, as it's word of mouth.
What did you say though? What does he think he just said in this less than 10 minute video? What is the solution here? I can't believe the solution wasn't, like he said, oh, if you talk about it and you go through and you do all the things, if they still don't want to have sex with you, divorce. Divorce. Hello? Why isn't divorce an option? You know what I mean? Like, divorce. Like, I like how every option was like, stay with your partner, but go sleep with other people. It's like, does she know this? Divorce. Hello? Okay. Let's see here. He put a pinned comment, says sexless marriage is a depressingly common phenomenon, and not one that is well understood. My take is fairly unconventional, namely refusing to have sex in an exclusive monogamous relationship by unilateral decision is a form of cheating. This is because the mono in monogamy means one. Okay, we got it, bro. You said that during the video. Great video. I wholeheartedly agree. I've always said that when a wife refuses to have sex with her husband, it is essentially a quiet divorce. Yeah, maybe, honestly, like, hell, I'd be kind of interested in dissecting that and deconstructing it, because it might be, right? It could be a quiet divorce. It could be her separating intimacy from her partner and putting a wall between the two of them. For real, like, yes, for sure, I agree. But then why wouldn't the suggestion be separation and divorce? And then everyone will say, oh, because of money or because of kids or because of whatever else. Girl, you will make more money. You will do better things. Why would you cling to a dying relationship? For what? You will thrive better alone. You will be better. Your kids will be better. They would rather see their parents thrive in the world than stay in a marriage that kills them in spirit. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. His chat said a good way to explain this to someone is to take any other aspect of the relationship and have them imagine a husband telling his wife she can only partake in that aspect with him while he simultaneously denies it to her for years on end. An example is a husband who tells his wife she can only go to him for emotional support, not friends or family. Well, the husband completely ignores her and denies her of any emotional support. They do that. It's called abuse, and you should divorce that person. Or where the husband says the wife can only do social things with him and then loses all interest in doing anything social. They do that, and if that happens, it's called abuse. It doesn't mean you can then go cheat. It means your partner... Okay, here's the thing. If you're in a relationship... And you know what the problem is? People I know who have been in these situations, men especially, they're like, oh yeah, I've cheated. I was like, you cheated? They're like, yeah, I've cheated. And I was like, when? And they're like, oh, like I was in an abusive relationship where she cut me off. She didn't want to go socialize. She didn't want to be outside. She would always like hang out with her family over my family. Like she basically wasn't in the marriage. And I was like, oh, why didn't you just divorce her? And they're like, well, I thought maybe we could make it work a different way. Maybe if I saw other people. And I was like, well, does she know about that? And they'd be like, well, she said that like she doesn't want to know about it and it hurts her feelings and she doesn't like it. Something like that, right? And it was like, why are you guys trying so hard to do everything but just grow up and divorce? And it's because you're traumatized. It's because you're stunted. Imagine being 45 years old and not knowing how to fucking divorce somebody. Imagine being 35 years old and not knowing how to divorce somebody. Like, guys, I know life is hard. I know you're traumatized. Me too, girlies. Let's just get divorced. Okay? File the goddamn paperwork, stop harassing people in court. And I understand in some situations it's necessary because of abuse or whatever else. But if it's just like a marriage that's at its end, shake hands and move on. Okay? If you really fell out of love with that person, shake hands and move on. Okay? Like just at some point in your life, and then teach people how to be preventative in their lives, because like you are not special, you are not unique, but divorce is way too prevalent for us not to say like, maybe we're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Maybe we're doing our relationships wrong. Maybe there's something with us too. It's not just one-sided. It's not just like this person or this person, minus the really toxic situations, like minus the like really, you know what I mean? Like those, if you're just really falling out of love with somebody, that's okay. I think society also burdens us with shame of divorce. We got to move away from that too, right? Like we need to move away from the shame of divorce. Like so many people should just be like, oh man, I'm sorry it didn't work out. We should just get divorced. You know those people who do like celebrate, like they do parties after divorces and people are like, this is so bad. It's normalizing divorce. We've got to start normalizing divorce instead of staying in a relationship where you're miserable. Like JD Vance said to do. JD Vance said that women are so quick to get divorced. People are so quick to get divorced. Girl, if it's the love of your life and this is a good partner, you won't be quick to get divorced. But if you are quick to divorce, in quotations, it's because it's not your person. Divorce them. You'll be better off, okay? His chat said, imagine if a guy just went, sorry, honey, I just don't want to work anymore. And I also don't want to do any of the housework either. You should love me for who I am. That's the exact equivalent. Hi, hello, are you stupid? That's literally not even fucking close. That's literally two things when the first example was one thing, so it's literally not equivalent or analogous. Thank you. Okay, they're literally not even the same. But thank you, chat. Okay, then his chat says, the problem with this video is that it can only be understood by reasonable and logical people. The other 50% of the population will have a meltdown if they have to take accountability for their failures. I expect plenty of shaming and disingenuous comments if this video goes viral. Bro, sex is the only thing that separates a couple from being merely roommates. No, wrong. Okay, the relationship is over when one of them doesn't want to have sex. Why do they waste 5 to 10 years hanging around? Honestly, okay, first, the relationship is not over because sex doesn't exist, but I also wonder, why do you guys hang around? I am so curious on how you went 5 years without sex and then got to 20 years without sex and then decided all of a sudden you care about it. You know what I mean? What? That's crazy. Sex and marriage is something as a man you really can't argue. Speak to your wife about on it and she'll desire you less. Bring other people into it and they'll likely tell you as a husband you're just not involved enough or being domineering. What? And truthfully, you can't force her. It's sad. But my only advice to you fellas is to stop giving women exclusive monopoly over your sex lives through means of marriage. You can't control women or what they do, but you sure can avoid putting yourself in such situations. Ugh, sounds lovely, bro. As an experienced divorce lawyer, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, I can tell you that most of my divorce clients are in sexless, loveless, affectionless marriages. That they are nothing more than roommates who don't even like or respect each other. Well, hell, yeah, no wonder. Actually, I agree with this. Wait, no two cases are exactly alike. However, the lack of physical intimacy is common. Well, hold on, bro. I kind of agree with this. I would also not be in a sexless, loveless, affectionless marriage. Like, I don't want that either, for the record. I think we all agree that sounds horrible. Let's not do that. But, you know, what we define as like roommate marriage is different. I don't think sex is necessary in a good marriage, but some people do. I don't. So when you're dating, you have to ask, do you think sex is necessary in a marriage? Like, a lot of people don't. And these men are all thinking with their horny 20-year-old brains. Girl, you gotta relax. Because when you're 80 after a hip surgery, are you speaking of, like, you know what I mean? What do you think we're doing here? You think we're fucking on the kitchen counter? And I know old people get it, girl. I know old people get it. But can we please, like, be so for real right now, okay? It's like, please. Okay, let's see. My sister cut her husband off about 30 years ago because she felt he was less successful than she expected. They had 3 minor children at the time. And I told my wife he would stay married but get a girlfriend. I told my wife he could stay married and get a girlfriend. I see. My wife's sister. Okay. She insisted he would never do that. My wife and her sister recently discovered that I was right. They're horrified that he didn't accept a sexless marriage, and I laughed and reminded my wife that I told her so. Why would you rather cheat than get divorced? I don't fucking get it. I don't get it, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't get it, bro. Like, I get it if you're married to a person you think will take you for every penny in divorce court, but that started before that started way before. Like, I understand a lot of these people are in bad marriages with people who hate them, and they're terrified that they're gonna, like, have to give every penny to her. Honestly, bro, move on. Give it to her and move on. Or don't. You know, my mother had a first marriage that was really abusive, and I always asked her, I was like, why didn't you go for child support? And she said, with what money? He never had a job. He lived with his parents his whole life. Okay. He's never been responsible. He never wanted, and he didn't. He never wanted any relationship with my brothers. My brothers tried. He was a very toxic person. I've only really met him once, the ex, and he was like not a good person. But I think what was even more interesting, right, is that it still impacted my brothers, of course, because it will. And 2, they had to go through their own journey of accepting that their bio dad didn't want anything to really do with them and only wanted stuff to do with them when it was convenient or to weaponize it against my mom. But I always asked my mom, why didn't you go for money? And she said, even if he had money, I'd rather just start over again from scratch. And I think that's where I get it from. I do. My partner and I talk about the same thing. We did not get a prenup. If we get divorced, we'd rather just start over again from scratch. And I know for some people, that's like the scariest thing you could ever do. It's just not one of our fears because we know what to do. I know you might not know what to do. I know you might be doing it. And I know how hard it is to see some of my friends with 3 kids start over again from scratch. I've seen it in other people. I also know that that fear is keeping you in a bad marriage. I also know that fear, and you should do nothing out of fear, is keeping you in a bad situation and keeping your kids in one too. If I can just start again, if this person will just leave me alone, I will go penniless. Leave me alone and let me start my life again. You know, and that's what I wish for all of you. I wish for all of you to do things out of joy and love and never out of fear. Don't cheat because you're scared of a divorce. Don't get married because you're afraid of being lonely. You know, don't avoid divorce because you're afraid of starting again. Free yourself from the attachment of doing things because you're afraid, you know? And I know for a lot of people, they settle because they'd rather be married than alone. Again, that's out of fear. You're doing it out of fear, okay? And I understand that for a lot of women, they're already in really bad situations, but that's why we have to give new people, young people, better advice. The same advice that I'm giving now might not apply to someone who's already been married for 20 years or somebody who's in an abusive relationship. But it might apply to somebody who's not there yet, who hasn't done it yet, or maybe is in that relationship but has a chance to get out. Like, I want you to know there's always something better waiting for you when you're ready. But at the same time, like, it's going to be the hardest thing you ever did, you know? And I don't know, I just think like it's the language. Like, if your partner is denying you sex, if your person is withholding sex, then I would ask, like, why are you in a marriage with somebody who like doesn't have the same values, doesn't like you, doesn't love you? You know, it's like, that's really the question. I think sometimes when we have these conversations, we're always starting at like this point, but girl, go backwards. How did you get there? Listen, look at this comment here. My best friend just passed away. His ex-wife denied him sex for an entire marriage, 20 years, no sex. Since he passed, I've been very tempted to reach out to her to express how disgusting she was for doing this to him. She also poisoned their only kid against him, so he was shut out completely and then he died. Life is so infuriating. I want justice for him. First of all, I can't believe that story on face value, but I'm sure it happens to somebody. But also, like, what do you mean she denied him sex for an entire marriage, right? Like, what do you mean she poisoned her kid against him? Maybe that happens, but what do you mean by it? And what do you mean, like, he died, life is so infuriated, I want justice for him? You want justice because your bestie's ex-wife didn't have sex with him? Or do you want justice because you feel like your bestie was abused, and instead of being his homie and encouraging a divorce, you stayed by and watched him stay in an abusive marriage? Are you saying that, what are you saying? Like, what is really being expressed here? Again, I know we're not perfect and we can't save all our friends from abusive marriages, but also, like, what are you even saying here? Okay? And so I think, like, with all of these conversations, we have to have an honest conversation with ourselves first and foremost. Why are we interested in marriage and why do we want it? Listen, every single one of the girls in my life that I ever see settle for loser men are girls who have not deconstructed loneliness and are afraid of being alone. They are afraid of being alone. And that's why I say my life, I was liberated from toxicity the moment I started to have a good relationship with myself. And the moment I stopped feeling alone when I was by myself. The moment I stopped feeling loneliness because I was single. Once that happened, it changed. But also, guys, it wasn't just that I was single. Pause, hold on. It wasn't just that I was single, but even around my friends. I would feel lonely even if I was in a relationship. I would feel lonely even if I had a bunch of friends. What I had to realize, because I've never been alone. Keep in mind, I have been in and out of relationships my whole life. I've been surrounded by friends my whole life. So I'm a different case. But I had to learn how to stop being lonely in a group. I had to stop and realize, like, it's not that I even have somebody. It's that I am lonely within my own consciousness. That I don't know what I'm doing on planet Earth. I don't even know why I'm alive. Okay, that existential dread that I was going through was like, none of it was going to matter if I didn't want to be alive. Okay? What shocks me is when people aren't suicidal, but they're willing to stay in a sexless marriage for 20 years. Girl, you're not even thinking about yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm sitting here thinking about myself, even if life is great and you're sitting here, life is miserable and you're not even thinking about that. Very different brains, you know what I mean? And by the way, I understand that when I say like, even when life is working out, life never really worked out until I went to therapy and I did philosophical work and I got out of my toxic relationships. And then at that point, everything did kind of work out because I knew what I was doing here, right? And I think that's what's missing. What are these men even doing on the planet? Is it just so they can get married and fuck? Is that it? Is that your whole fucking life? Are you just so defined by fucking and working? Is that it? Is your whole life just fucking and working and having kids? Like, is that it? You do you, boo. You do you. Discord said, I think I get it. Divorce could mean a loss of status in the man, while sleeping with another person increases their perceived status in patriarchy. I mean, it makes sense if you look at people status obsessed animals. That's true. I guess in patriarchy, at least he got, you know, another woman. But if he divorces his wife, then he's like a divorced man, which also looks bad for her. So maybe they both avoid divorce because they both don't want to handle the stigma, which should be deconstructed. This is why I say deconstruct patriarchy. There's nothing wrong with getting divorced, and you are not less than because you've been divorced before. But the dilemma is like we still have to deconstruct why that's a stigma. And that also keeps people in bad marriages because they don't want to deal with the friends and family talking about them, right? That's what I'm saying. It is also a cultural thing. We as a society have to reinforce that it's okay to divorce people, okay? Because at the end of the day, if this is the love of your life, you're not thinking about divorcing them. If this is your high compatibility partner, you're not talking about divorce unless there's abuse. So in that case, get divorced. Get divorced. Why are you staying in an abusive marriage? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. You know, just as the nuclear family is the first fascist system most of us encounter, and it's rearing its ugly head as loud as possible with this administration. They are trying so hard to push this nuclear family, to shame women who retire with 20 cats, to shame people for being single. They are going so hard towards men too. They are absolutely targeting men and young boys so hard. Okay, they are absolutely radicalizing the men, and the men will take it out on the women, and it's going to happen all over again. Get ready, girls. Start being so diligent in first dates. Start asking the hardest questions you've ever asked somebody on a first date before you end up marrying a man who's going to abuse you for the next 20 years. But you know what I'm saying? Because he's some fascist fucking Trump voter. You know what I'm saying? Like, start really asking the questions that matter, because you don't want to find out 5 years in your marriage. You don't want to find out when your kid comes out gay. You don't want to find out, you know, XYZ, right? You don't want to find out. So ask those questions. Make them uncomfortable in a good, loving, wholesome way. So tell me about fascism. What are your thoughts? Do we hate? Do we love? Do we hate? Do we love? And if they say, well, you know, the real fascists, the leftists, be like, date over. Date over. You know, everybody hates a side until you talk about people they don't like. Oh my God, I'm so anti-genocide. What do you think about what's happening with Israel-Palestine? Well, you know, Israel has a right to defend itself. Boo, date over. These are the good first date questions. These are the good first date questions. I know it's very serious, by the way. I'm being like really tongue-in-cheek about something that's deadly serious and impacted a lot of people's lives, and it was a devastating situation. Life is a devastating situation, but you got to ask these questions on a first date. You have to. You have to ask the ugly questions on a first date, because genuinely, while you're sitting down across from a man eating sushi, there's a genocide happening. The least you could do is ask about it.